and welcome back to CEO.CA's coverage live from Beaver Creek 2024. I'm joined right now by Richard Drechsler, CEO and Director of Trifecta Gold. They trade on the Venture Exchange under the ticker TG. Richard, how are you finding the conference so far?
Oh, it's a great conference. We were saying it's probably the best of the year. We've got a great captive audience up here in Beaver Creek. So full slates of meetings, and then all evening you're networking. So it's really a great opportunity to come here every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this year may be a unique backdrop with all-time highs in gold, which is certainly adding a bit of buzz to the air. I want to kick things off with this interview, maybe a bit of your industry experience. How long have you been in the industry, and then how did you come to join Trifecta?
Okay, yeah. So I'm coming out of university. I started working in mineral exploration in the Yukon with Archer Cathro and Associates. They're a famous exploration and consulting firm up in the Yukon, responsible for many of the major discoveries. And yeah, so I started doing field work and then managing programs for them, and over the years transitioned into doing a lot more of the work in the office, and then got involved with the juniors. So I think it was probably 2008, 2009 when I started to work with Strategic Metals, which is the parent company of Trifecta Gold. Mm-hmm. And yeah, over the years, just taken on larger and larger roles within the juniors that are sort of in our ecosystem. Okay. And we formed Trifecta Gold in 2017 as a spin out from Strategic Metals.
Okay.
And so I was initially on the board as a director there, and I more recently became CEO.
Okay, fantastic. And is there still a relationship between Strategic Metals and Trifecta? Are they still a shareholder?
Yeah, so our most recent property acquisition was actually we're acquiring a package of 12 projects from Strategic. And they were already an existing shareholder. They maintained about a 9.9% share interest when we formed the company. Mm-hmm. And that was sort of their exposure to the SpinCo. And subsequently to that, in order to acquire this package of projects, we topped them back up to 9.9. And then we have obligations to spend about $6 million on the package over the next 4 years. And then at that point, we can issue them another 9.9, and then we've got 100% interest in the project. So yeah, I mean, directly aligned with Trifecta shareholders and strategic shareholders in this deal, because it is a related party deal. I mean, I'm the vice president of communications at Strategic and CEO at Trifecta. So we had to make sure we got through all the minority shareholders, but we structured it in such a way that it's everyone wins when Trifecta shareholders win. So
yeah, no, fantastic. I guess you're winding back the clock to that formation and the spin out of Trifecta. Walk us through maybe the vision there, and I guess maybe what the company focus is now, and has it evolved at all since that initial spin out? Yeah,
so I guess our project focus has evolved over the years, but really the reason that we formed Trifecta was to take assets from project generators that we're working very closely with, that we saw a very high probability that there was a deposit there, and that we could get that discovery premium and basically keep that in-house. And so that was basically the reason that we had Trifecta. Strategic's business model as a project generator isn't to go off and drill deposits. So it's basically keep an interest and move it along. And so that was basically Trifecta is our vehicle to take some of the assets that we see that are kind of in-house that some of our favorites that we don't want to let go, right? And then finance those and move them forward within Trifecta.
Okay, no, very interesting. And I understand you've maybe pivoted somewhat. You had a dual focus on Nevada and the Yukon, and then you're more recently kind of honing in on the Yukon projects. Walk us through maybe that transition.
Yeah, well, I guess we do have a history in Yukon. We've got a 100% held project in Nevada that has some historical mining on it. Got some good intersects below that mine, some anomalies along strike. But after Snowline made that major discovery out in the Tombstone belt, I mean, it is truly a tier 1 discovery that focused our attention there. And Strategic had actually been putting together a package of targets that were looking for those reduced intrusion gold deposits. Over the past 10-15 years, we've been working in that belt as Strategic, and had a number of partners come in at various times and perform work and advance those targets. So we had a huge amount of data through this Tombstone gold belt within Strategic, and we really needed to find a way to move that forward, in this market, and kind of piggyback on the coattails of the Snowline success, right? And really, they proved to the market that these reduced intrusions could have multiples of the grade that was previously known in the models. I mean, normally when people thought about reduced intrusion deposits, they would think of 0.7, 0.8 grams. But now with the snow line showing that you could have multiples of that grade, it really opened up that whole belt again. And so with Trifecta, we said, well, we've already have these huge geochem anomalies identified by previous work. Okay. So let's take advantage of all that data and get out on the ground and make some more discoveries. It's basically back to elephant country, right? I mean, that's really what moves the needle, I think, for juniors in the space is, you got to swing for the fences. You want to find those tier one assets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is, there are certainly a number of companies operating in that region now, looking for those kind of rigs systems.
Yeah.
Certainly an appealing place to be working. You had some drill results out recently, from the Rye Project, I believe.
Yeah, so the Rye Project, not drill results. We're still we're developing our drill targets there.
Okay,
and
understood.
So it was surface sampling, but we had some nice grades, vein material in the 5 to 7 gram range where we were picking it up. And what we have at the Rye Project is we've got 2 known Tombstone suite intrusions, and then there's an area of metasediments in between them that are quite altered, and the vein density when you're within that Hornfels zone is increasing quite a bit. So we had a team out there this summer doing detailed mapping and figuring out where in the system do we have the highest vein densities, and it really turns out that where they found some of the nicest outcrops, it was right in an area where we have coincident gold, arsenic, bismuth, and tellurium geochemistry, and those are the indicator elements for these reduced intrusion systems. So it's progressing very well. We're finding more showings and trying to develop drill targets on there. So sort of the next step on Rye after we made the discoveries this year is going to be doing some more detailed sampling of some of those new discoveries of the big areas of sheeted veining to get an idea of what they grade, and then we'll be moving that towards the drilling stage.
Okay, excellent. And you still have grab samples pending from the Lance project as well?
Yeah, so the Lance, that one that's a very large project area. Again, it's marked by magnetic low. It's got the right geochemistry. We had some big anomalies identified by previous operators on the eastern side as well, where we don't really have outcrop. And so we sent a team of prospectors in there this year, and they've been sending some nice photos from the field of good mineralization. So once that team is they're off on another project now, but once they're back and we can sit down and really lay out what they found there this summer, we'll have another release on the Lance. And so again, that one's similar stage to Rye, where we're just trying to really hone in on where we should drill test this.
Okay, and are these the 2 main focuses at the moment, Lance and Rye?
Well, actually, Hinton is the flagship.
Okay,
and so that one, that's the one where we ran into some issues with the drilling this year, so we didn't get quite as much accomplished on the drilling front as we hoped to. But historically, and quite recently, even in 2020, it was drilled, and there's a lot of really big intersects there. And so Hinton is a massive project. We were calling it the golden core to a legendary mining camp. And reason for that is it's directly adjacent to Hecla's mine at Keno Hill. And they've been mining silver there for about 100 years. And so we're just to the south of there. And what we realized is, the mineralization we're seeing there is much more gold rich. Mm-hmm. And when you look at a map of the placer activity in the area, every drainage coming off of Mount Hinton is just loaded with, has active placer operations on it. And they're pulling out these big, golf ball size to finger size nuggets out here, obviously coming out of the drainage we're working in. I mean, they're mining the mouth of it. Yeah. And so we know that it's loaded with gold. And so Strategic Metals actually drilled some holes there in 2020, had some broad intersects, 12 meters of 6 grams sort of thing. And so how that might fit into a reduced intrusion model is, even though we're not in intrusive rocks, we've got these big, massive quartz veins with lots of high-grade gold, limited sulfide and whatnot. And so we started thinking, that's more on the Pogo analogy. And so we were able to bring Moira Smith on as an advisor. And so she's been helping us with determining, what sort of studies we should be doing to really focus in on that and prove out that, that is kind of the system that we have. Another big aspect of our program at Mount Hinton this summer was we flew a ZTEM survey, which will give us detailed magnetic data throughout the project area. And because we've previously had a survey that covered part of the ground, because the property has been subsequently expanded since our last geophysical survey. And what we see there is in the southern portion of the project, we had a big mag low starting to develop, and then it was the edge of our coverage. So we've extended that. And again, the mag lows are what it seems to be a key marker for some of these reduced intrusion deposits. And so at Hinton, we've got a big mag low and then a big fringing vein system that has seen multiple rounds of exploration with good results, very high grades. And then you step it a little bit further, and then you're into the Keno Hill mineralizing system where they're more in the lead, zinc, silver phase. So it fits that reduced intrusion model quite beautifully, actually, when you sort of overlay it right out of the textbook onto Hinton. So it's just a matter of putting the pieces together.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of the kind of pieces of the puzzle coming together. The ZTEM data, sampling from Lance and Rye. I guess with all of this kind of information coming in, what are your plans over the next 6 to 12 months in terms of maybe honing in on some targets?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously we've got to get all the results in from this summer and compiled and then out there. And then, the goal is, depending on what we've got at what we come up with Lance in terms of drill targets, and we'll be prioritizing our drill programs for next year. We've got about, under the option agreement, we have to spend around $1 million next year to continue our earn-in. That's like across all the projects. Mm-hmm. Basically, I mean, Mount Hinton, there's no shortage of targets to be drilling on. It's road accessible, so that's one that we'd like to get a much larger drill program focused on that this coming season. And so that'll be basically the goal once we get all the results in and interpreted is to move forward, fundraising for the larger programs, and again continuing to identify drill targets on the rest of the package. I mean, we only worked on 3 of the 12 targets that we're acquiring from Strategic this summer. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of those other ones are earlier stage. So they've got the lower cost work to still do as we advance those. But in the meantime, we can focus on the near infrastructure targets that are relatively de-risked. I mean, there's the structures at Mount Hinton. I mean, now that you've got up-to-date Google Earth imagery. Like, I mean, honestly, we used to pay $1,000 to get these air photos and whatnot. Yeah. And now you've got 2024 Airbus imagery on here, and you can see the veins by going on there.
Really?
Like, wow. No problem. You can trace them all along strike. So it's obvious where you should set up to drill these things, and they've got strike lengths in upwards of 1 kilometer, and it's sort of 3 major vein trends that are off the flanks of the big mag low at Hinton. So there's no shortage of targets there, and we know there's tons of gold on the property. So it's just a matter of us figuring out where is the mineable deposit there. It's not a question of is there gold. So it's a nice problem to have.
No, absolutely. I guess just to wrap up here, when investors are looking at some of the gold stories out there, and I think with gold at all-time highs, there's probably more and more people starting to look at opportunities to get exposure to that. Why should people be looking at Trifecta, and why should they be looking right now?
Okay, well, it's the Trifecta, right? We've got a team who's discovered. Maybe it's Scott's deposits now highest. My line used to be we had the 2 highest grade gold deposits over 1 million ounces came from our team in the Yukon, right? So we've found many deposits. We've got the right team in place that has found deposits in the Yukon in the past. We've got the share structure. We restructured the company in order to make this acquisition. So in terms of all the other companies that are exploring the Tombstone Gold Belt, we've got the tightest share structure. Mm-hmm. We only have 30 million out, and we've got over 40% of that held by either strategic or key investors and insiders. So share structure is key. That'll give you more leverage as we make the discovery. And then it's the gold price, so it's the right timing. You haven't seen a lot of the early stage explorers move yet, but that's very similar to sort of the 2008-2009 time period when gold started to run to all-time highs then. But I mean, that's about the time I started working with Strategic, and we were in the same position we are now, where you're basically trading below your bank account on some of these companies. And yet gold prices were running. And so it took a couple of years for that to sort of filter down to the explorers. So, I mean, with a company like Trifecta that's got, a micro cap right now, but it has a pathway to 100% of some major assets. And you're in, like you said, all-time high gold price environment. It's sort of it's the perfect timing. It's that's why how we came up with the name Trifecta when we formed it in the first place, right? We had the people, the projects, and the timing was the idea behind the name. And so I think we're right there, and we're restructured and ready to go.
Fantastic. Well, Richard, sounds like there is an exciting time ahead for Trifecta. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.